Yes.
Romain?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, just check in. We're having some difficulties. We're trying to sort that out. Shanice, bro? Shanice, are you online?
Yes.
Great. Romain, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And Roden, are you there? What about Carney?
I'm here.
Oh, thank you. Great. All right, thank you for joining us. We're going to proceed. We have 3 presentations that we want to look at. And I did indicate in the email how is it that we're going to progress with the presentations. And then after the presentations, I will continue to look at problem solving in the mathematics classroom. And so let's see if we can finish the presentations by the latest 6:30, and then we'll take the next 20 minutes to go through the PowerPoint on problem solving. Let me just check, did you all receive the email? I sent it to the group email. Those of you online, did you receive?
Yes, miss.
All right, great. What about Melissa? Did you receive that email?
Yes, miss.
Yes. All right.
I'm in trouble.
Right, just making sure.
No, I did not.
That's Roland.
Yes, it is. And no, I did not.
Did you check the group email?
I'm having. Yes, I've tried. I think I sent. Did you get an email from me on like Monday? On Monday? Because I sent you an email saying that I was having problems to go into the address you gave me.
No, it's not that.
And I didn't hear back from you, so I was wondering. Because I was waiting to talk to you today about it.
Did you take the correct address?
I think so. I'll tell you what I have. uemat1@yahoo.com, and my password, you told me, was student18.
Precisely. What difficulty are you having?
Well, when I tried to get in, I even asked the tech at my school to help me. I couldn't get in. I did, because I even said I had to go to the UE center to find out what was happening, but it has been a rough week.
That's strange because
I haven't been getting anything. Pardon?
that's quite strange because everybody else is using that. All right, we'll speak about this after.
Okay then, thank you.
Right.
All right.
Anybody else having difficulty accessing the email? All right, so our first presentation would be on social learning theory by Albert Bandura, and Alex and Albert Stevens are the persons who will be presenting. Just Alex alone? All right, I was informed that it's just Alex. So he's going to begin that presentation, followed by Donald and Shanice, and they will be looking at experiential learning by John Dewey. And then I am going to go back to a presentation that should have been done last week by Caroline and Melissa, sociocultural theory. And so let's see if we can stick to the time. All right. So, Alex, you can come and start. See, Alex, I'm begging for you.
Thank you.
Cheers. That's not. Cheers. Great. 4.2. Great.
So, I'm going. Yes. All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. I will be presenting on social learning theory by Albert Bandura. Okay. So, social learning theory, wonderful theory to know about. And the person himself, Albert Bandura, wonderful gentleman himself. His childhood, very interesting. He came from 6 children. He was the last. But we go more in depth into that. So, for those who are marking, is anyone marking online? Oh.
No, just Michelle.
Oh. But for those online, the brochure, there on the slide that you can preview. I'll leave it up for 30 seconds so you can view it. Yes, the color scheme change. Okay, so we go straight into the presentation. So, social learning theory, it's summed up into something as simple as this. I'm not calling anyone monkey, but monkey see, monkey do. So, social learning theory take the concept of observation, imitating, and modeling. But before we go into that, let's talk about the theorist, Bandura. Now, as I said before, Bandura was a very interesting person. He lives in a small town where there's only 1 school with 2 teachers. And he and his friend decided to pull a prank on the teacher in taking away the teacher's book that she used to teach. And the teacher could not continue on with her class. It was from then Bandura realized that, textbook after a while perish, but self-directedness continues for a lifetime. And from there, he developed his series. Now, on the slide, you will see all of Albert Bandura's accomplishments. And these accomplishments, he deserved it. He's actually one of the most outstanding theorists alive. He has not only came up with the social learning theory, but he has other theories as well: social cognitive, self-efficiency, and even personal agency. He came with a lot of theories, and even now, because he's still alive today, he is still working on other theories and promoting it as well. So, today, Bandura, as I said before, is identified as one of the greatest living psychologists, as well as one of the most influential psychologists of all times. So he began in the late 1980s and he's continuing from there, and he's, as I said before, he's booming. Now, let's go into the meat of the matter. What is social learning theory? As I said it before, social learning theory can be summed up into my sense as monkey see, monkey do. But in going into a more professional definition, social learning theory is basically persons learning behaviors through observational learning. So what happens is that a person will see someone doing something or hearing about them doing something and imitate it. Now, note, social learning theory does not mean a change in behavior. It only means an imitation in the behavior. So the person doesn't necessarily change in their behavior, but they know how to react in certain situations. Now, on the screen, we have something that is known as a Bobo doll. This was Albert Bandura's first experiment in relating to social learning theory. What happened was that he took some children to watch an adult into a room actually beating the Bobo doll. The children were there observing the adult. Now, after a while, the next day, he took the children, put them into the room with the Bobo doll, and funny enough, he saw the children taking out their frustration on the Bobo doll, actually imitating what the adults were doing. And from then, he theorized that social learning theory is something that every one of us go through, because we all, through at one point in our life, watch our parents do something and we try to imitate it. Now, there are three concepts of social learning theory. The main one being observational learning. And observational learning can take part into three different modules. The first module being the live module. Live module means that you're actually seeing the person doing it. So for example, a maths teacher on the board working out the equation, seeing the teacher do it, the individual will look and see how the teacher tackles the question and take it in. The second one, a verbal instructional module. So the teacher is there giving the students notes on how to answer the equation. The next one is the symbolic module. This can involve books or films in the sense that the teacher will carry students to a laboratory to watch a YouTube video of how the equation is being done. The next concept of social learning theory is the mental state. Now, in order for persons to actually imitate it, their mental capacity has to have some reinforcement. What does that mean? They have to be motivated to copy the behavior. So in the case that a student realizes that if they do their work, they're being rewarded for it, they'll be more motivated to do the work. If they realize that a certain behavior leads to a certain punishment, then they will be more hesitant into doing it. So the mental state of the person is important to the social learning theory and also important to learning. The third concept, as I stated earlier, learning does not change behavior. What this means is that a person is able to learn, imitate the behavior from whatever module, whether it's a live module, video module, or a symbolic module, verbal module, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the person will change. So I will normally see a teacher and I will say good morning to the teacher. That doesn't mean that I have manners, but seeing how other persons doing it, I imitate that behavior. Now we're going to have a video to go a little bit more in depth into the third concept.
Remember the first time you tried to make breakfast? Chances are you didn't get out a cookbook and follow step-by-step instructions. There's a good chance that you thought back to a time when you watched your mom make them and just followed what you remember her doing. So how did you successfully cook scrambled eggs the first time you tried without a cookbook? The answer to that question is the focus of this lesson, a process called observational learning. Observational learning has been part of the human experience for a long time. But it wasn't until somewhat recently that psychologists began to examine this phenomenon closely in an effort to understand it better. Albert Bandura, a Canadian-born psychologist, gets credit for developing and popularizing observational learning theories. Bandura did most of his work in the latter half of the 20th century. Bandura theorized that observational learning occurs in 4 distinct steps: attention, retention, motor reproduction, and reinforcement. These 4 concepts used in sequence allow organisms to acquire the ability to engage in new, at times complex behavior simply through observation. Attention is first step in the process of understanding observational learning. Let's apply the scrambled eggs example to illustrate the process. If you ever want to cook eggs on your own, you must be able to first observe someone else engaging in the activity while actively bringing the information into your brain through your senses. If you don't watch intently as your mom cracks the eggs, scrambles them in a bowl, and cooks them in a pan, then how can your brain even begin to truly learn the process? Attention is critical to making sure that you catch all of the important details. So, you've paid close attention to how your mom prepares and cooks scrambled eggs. Now it's your turn, and you've got to remember how to do it. Retention is the process of taking the information in through your senses and committing it to memory. You have to remember the steps in order to replicate them later. Cooking scrambled eggs is a pretty simple process involving only a few steps. So, remembering the steps is not that challenging for the average person. More advanced and complex patterns of behavior require more advanced strategies to make sure the information observed is committed to memory and able to be accessed when needed later. Regardless of the level of complexity of the observed behavior you are trying to learn, remember what you observed is critical. So, you pay close attention to the steps involved in cooking scrambled eggs. You've retained that new knowledge by committing it to memory. Have you made any eggs yet? Motor reproduction is the act of putting to use the information that your brain has taken in. In order to truly learn the behavior of cooking scrambled eggs, you need to actually attempt to make scrambled eggs. So, you take the knowledge that you have gained through the process of attention and retention and put it to use. You get out the eggs, gather the supplies you will need, fire up the skillet, and give it a go. You just made your first attempt at cooking scrambled eggs after years of watching mom do it. So, how'd it go? If it went well, you are likely to cook eggs more often. The positive result of cooking the scrambled eggs acts as reinforcement, so that you are encouraged to make them again. Reinforcement, or lack thereof, can increase or decrease the likelihood of a behavior being repeated. Vicarious reinforcement is one type of reinforcement that is unique to observational learning. Vicarious reinforcers impact the behavior of the observer. So, if mom makes eggs that taste great and your sister comes into the kitchen, has a bite, and tells mom how great they are, not only is mom more likely to make them again, but you are also more likely to make eggs in the future. The power of seeing the positive reinforcement that your mom received from your sister makes it more likely that you will make eggs because you saw the positive response from your sister that making yummy scrambled eggs elicited. We've covered a lot here, so let's summarize. Observational learning is a specific type of learning where the observer learns new behaviors by watching some other organism engage in a certain behavior. Albert Bandura is credited with formulating the theory of observational learning. Bandura proposed that successful observational learning must include attention, retention, motor reproduction, and reinforcement. Understanding the theory of observational learning is not only helpful when it comes to cooking scrambled eggs, but it can be used to efficiently teach and learn a host of new behaviors.
So, just to sum up the video, as we clearly see and we physically explain things clearly, observational learning does not necessarily change the behavior because the person, observational learning doesn't mean that the person will take an interest in starting to cook. But because the fact that they saw their mother cooking the egg and the egg, their person eating the egg, giving their mother a thumbs up applause, they will want to get motivated enough to actually imitate that behavior so they can get a thumbs up applause as well. Also going into retention. Retention, most persons retain the memory in 2 different ways. Either through image, in the sense that they create a mental picture into their mind, or verbally. So for example, you're here watching the person driving and then you see the person brake, start the car. So verbally, they're retaining the memory. So they're repeating it over and over again. While in some cases, other persons having a mental image in mind, imagining the person starting the car, putting it into reverse, and backing up. Now, there's 2 dimensions of social learning theory. One is vicarious learning. That means that persons either get rewarded or punished based on the behavior. So what happens is that you're looking on, based on if the person get rewarded or punished will determine whether or not you will imitate that behavior. The next one is pure model, where the person is not punished or rewarded at all. Now, self-efficacy, is a different theory of itself, but it does play a part in social learning theory. How? The user must have confidence towards the learning. If the user doesn't have any confidence within him or herself, then they will be less likely to observe the behavior, thinking within themselves that they're not good enough, therefore they won't be able to pay attention, shutting down the whole process of social learning theory completely. So unless the person, remember the person must have the attention to grasp the behavior. So the person does not believe in him or herself, they will not be able to actually grasp the behavior. They'll be shutting it down completely without even looking to see what is going on. Now, relevant contribution and application to math thinking and learning. Now, in order for social learning to actually take place, it must be done amongst your peers. So group work is a must when it comes down to social learning theory. So the first contribution and application to math thinking and learning is socio-cognitive conflicts. What this means is that different persons are coming with their different ways of doing things, and it causes a dispute. Now you might be thinking, how is this a relevant contribution? I mean, me and you arguing over something that's like total disaster. Not really. What happened is that the persons will be willing, once they hear somebody else talks about a different theory, to reconsider their own opinions and to further go into their minds and test their theory over again, and also implement the other person's theory that is coming towards them. They may even merge the theory, which will come to the second one, co-construction of knowledge. If me and you are here working together and I see you doing something, I am learning from your behavior. So I have my knowledge and I'm applying the knowledge that I learned through observational learning to what I have. So I'm co-constructing the knowledge that I have. Next one is collaboration. In the event that there's group work, persons will be collaborating. You must have a strong leader in the group, talking and demonstrating what needs to be done. And in doing that, collaboration means that students are able to give a verbal description of what's going on in their mind. And in doing that, the teacher is able to pinpoint the level that the student is at and therefore able to pick it up and help teach. The next one is teacher model behavior of students. What does this mean? As a teacher looking on, seeing how other students are learning from each other, I can copy that behavior, because normally they say that students language better understand each other. Teachers can't talk in a way that students understand. Normally in my maths class, what happens is that whenever I teach a lesson, there are some students who probably don't really grasp it, another student come and say, no man, consider it like dumpling. You get one dumpling and you add another dumpling to it. So they break it down, and a teacher looking on that, model the student behavior, saying, okay, I can take that concept and apply it to my lesson to further grab the student's attention or make them understand it even further. Teachers plan creative maths lesson. Remember, in order for observational learning to take place, there must be a means for the student's attention. So the teacher has to create a nice lesson plan to grab the student's attention. And once the student's attention is there, the student is able to observe and imitate that behavior. Other relevant contribution, curriculum, instructions, and assessment. Students get a chance to observe and model behavior that leads to positive reinforcement. So that in itself, the teacher will take that and include it in the curriculum. Instructions, the teacher seeing how the learning environment take place will create that environment in which you can give the student, instruct the students on how to tackle the maths work. What do I mean by creative environment or supportive environment? In the event that a student is there and the student has an issue, and for me, I don't understand, the teacher bite off the student head. I'm there looking on, observing what is happening, will not want to say nothing at all. Remember that observational learning as well. So I'm looking on, see how the teachers react to when someone doesn't understand the question. If I don't understand, I'll be less than likely to talk. So that's what we mean by positive assessment. If the teacher wants to really truly assess the student, she needs to create an environment where there is certain reward and incentive when the student does something good. In doing that, in rewarding students for good behavior, the students are more likely to repeat that behavior again. So that's it with maths. If we come and the students do a good work, we need to give them an incentive to encourage them to continue the work. The limitation to social learning theory. There is no theory without its limitation. The first thing is that it ignores biological factor. For example, for students with Down syndrome, remember students with Down syndrome, they cannot really pay attention that much. And also person with schizophrenia and other mental disease, they have a hard time getting the attention that is there. Also, the observer can miss things. In case an observer miss things, they will not be able to imitate that behavior because they did not see it. Also, it doesn't take into account what a person really view as being punishment or reward. Because probably, I had an example of a student and he did very well in my class and he normally gets the work wrong. So I come and said, well done, John Brown, you're moving up. He considered that to be an embarrassment because, I'm putting him up to his peer when I was actually congratulating him for, improving on the work that he done. So different persons have a different view of what punishment and reward is. So this is the limitation. The characteristics of the module. I am there and let's say Miss is up here teaching. I'm there thinking, boy, Miss good at it, Miss a lecturer, Miss have a big degree and so forth. I am there comparing myself to Miss Baker. And the thing is that because I don't see myself in her position, the attention is there cut short. Because I'm saying, Miss is in the position to do it. Miss is smart. I don't have the capacity as Miss. So that's another limitation to it. The next thing, the characteristic of the observer. Some persons don't really find some lessons attractive. And therefore, the observer is not really willing to pay attention to anything at all. No matter how you bring it across to them, if their mind is left or right or their mind is on last night problem, that's it. They won't be able, and remember with social learning theory, attention is the main thing because the students have to be observing what is going on. Now, recommendation to maths learning. Remember what I said, there has to be a powerful learning environment to actually grab the students' attention. Now, I'm an IT teacher along with maths. And the thing is that I normally integrate computing in all of my lessons. And I realize that in doing that, carrying students to the lab and actually making them see PowerPoint is much better than the chalk on board, as some person says. So the student is able to look on the YouTube video or whatever creative activity. Normally we have the smart board here, and if a good case that we're going through measuring angles, I'll actually bring up the protractor and the students seeing that they're fascinated by it. And that grabs their attention. They're looking on intently. And because of that, they're able to grasp the activity that is going on the board. So recommendation of math learning, maths need to include more computer, more visual stuff to grab the students' attention. Mentorship experience. Remember observational learning, you imitate from your peers. What we can do in event, we can see someone that is actually doing well in maths and team up with somebody that is not so up there. And the thing is that when you group them together, the persons are watching each other and therefore they're imitating his behavior. So for example, Michelle is there. I'm not good at math. Michelle is good at maths. I'm teaming up with Michelle in a group work. In seeing Michelle, how Michelle tackle the question, when the time comes for me to tackle it, I will be remembering the stuff that Michelle does. Normally what happens in a maths class, segregation normally goes on. Normally you have those at the front who probably seem interested to learn or want to learn. And then you have those at the back who just figure that they can't do maths and can't bother with it. So normally it's best to assess the students, know their current strengths and level, and then once you know that, then you create a mentorship program. Put two students together, one that is strong and one is not so strong. And you realize that the one that is not strong is actually imitating the behavior. They're actually tackling the questions that the next person is doing. Yes, there might be some copying involved, that they might look on the person book and actually write out the answer. But at the same time, they're actually watching to see how the person tackled the question. And it creates, as the example in the video that we showed before, a retention. So they're looking on and they're seeing how the person tackled it, and that activity is retained in their mind. So when the environment comes for them now to do the exam, that motor skill, that memory comes up and they're able to reproduce it. Next thing, plan a series of rewards. Now, remember that we talked about punishments and reward. Now, the case that students in maths see another student doing something good or getting a question right, it's good to give incentive that will motivate students to actually do better. I remember with my 8th graders, I told them those who get 90 and above at the end of your test, I give them $1,000. Yeah, serious. I give them $1,000. And you'd be surprised enough the amount of students who actually put out the effort. In fact, when I first came into the class and gave them homework, and this time I didn't even say anything. The first time when I came to teach them, I gave homework. And when I gave the homework, only probably 5 persons, no, more than 5 persons, but it's only 3 persons got it right. And when the 3 persons came up, I marked their books, then I gave them an envelope. And they said, sir, what is this? And when they opened the envelope, they saw $500. See, next day when I gave homework, everybody in the class came with their homework. They came with their homework. So observational learning, the persons look on and they're seeing that the students are being rewarded for that good behavior, and therefore they want to imitate that behavior, knowing that that behavior comes with certain rewards. Next thing, create an environment. Remember, you cannot cow down students for not really understanding a topic. And that's the thing, sometimes we as teachers don't really understand, because sometimes we're there, we want to complete a certain lesson. So when students come and say, Miss, I don't understand, we tell them to save the questions for later, or we can't take that now. I realize that what that does, it kind of downsize the student or make them feel that they're not allowed to ask questions. And as I said before, somebody else looking on who doesn't understand will less than likely imitate that behavior, because they're saying, okay, I cannot ask questions because Mr. doesn't seem to have the time to want to take it. All right, next thing, develop a positive technique for failure. And what I'm saying, you're not going to encourage failure, but in the case that the student does something wrong, come and say, boy, nice try, but if you didn't do this and that, that could have worked. Don't come and say, boy, what is this work? Go back, go do it, man. Don't slack. That type of attitude doesn't create the atmosphere for students. And as I said before, observational learning, social learning theory, where students are looking on and observing the behavior. So the case that teachers is calling them down for failure, the students will be less than likely to come up with their books or to even want the teacher to mark their work to know this at the stage that they're at, because they're afraid that the teacher will embarrass them in front of their students. So sometimes it's good to give a little thumbs up, even in the case of the student get it wrong, for at least putting out the effort, and at least give them a little gentle nudge into the right direction of where they should go. All right, the next thing is to develop a clear concept to students in terms of addressing them the right way of doing things. It's kind of linked to what I said before in terms of the failure. So you praise students and you push them into the right direction. As I said before, a person's looking on will module that behavior and we want to continue doing it. And the next thing, be a strong example to your students. Some of us as maths teachers will go into the classroom and we behave like maths is the worst thing ever when we're teaching it. And then some of us will come in and say, no, maths is a hard subject. And when the student looking at it hearing the teacher say that, they're like, why, Miss, I say it's hard. What about me? And as I said before, the students are looking at you and they're actually imitating your behavior and observing it too. In the case that they see that you're frustrated with maths, they're going to be looking and say, boy, but Miss frustrated with maths. But Miss was about I'm frustrated too as well. So that comes to the end of my social learning theory. And I'd like to end with a quote from Albert Bandura that says, learning will be exceedingly laborious, not to mention hazardous, if people had to solely rely on the effects of their own actions to inform them what to do. Fortunately, most human behavior is learned observationally through modeling. From observing others, one form an idea of how new behaviors are performed. And on later occasion, this coded information serves as a guide for action. And that's basically what the social learning theory has to say. And social learning theory, as I said, it's something that all of us do, and we're still doing it now. Because the thing is that we're all learning through observation in one capacity or another. Thank you. Any questions? Online and Mona.
Are there any questions for Alex? We're quite clear?
Okay.
All right, let's take some feedback then. We'll take a feedback from online. Roland, you want to comment on the presentation?
Okay. He was very in-depth in his explanation. He gave to me all the good pointers and he explained everything very, very well. I liked how he had the clip he had with the clip he had with the making of scrambled eggs. When you observe, you imitate and you model, which was a very good, I mean, relevant clip. And it was very good. That's all I can say.
Kimberly?
Yes, right?
Yes, go ahead and comment on the presentation. Did you learn anything new, anything that excited you?
I just got a chance to log on, Miss, so I just caught the last part of what he was saying.
Any comments on what you have seen? She seems to be having some difficulty. Yes, go ahead. All right, what about Romain? Go ahead and comment on the presentation.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Romain.
I think it was nicely done. Everything in it was related to maths, at least it with.
All right.
And as Roland said, the video, I like the video because it's applicable to what most students know about, so they can relate to it and apply it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Great. Anybody else from Mona want to comment on the presentation? Shanice? No, you're next one.
It's pretty good. It was in depth. I understand a lot. Yeah, pretty good.
I have one question though, in terms of, since this is based on observation mainly, I always think about those students, especially the boys in particular, with very short attention span or ADD. How is it that we cater for those students within our math classroom if we're going to be embracing this kind of culture?
Well, as it's funny enough, we learned that something about that in core education. We're talking about the gender difference.
Right.
I remember reading something that talks about computers. Boys are more interested in computer games. So I remember my IT class, we had online where this computer game talk with soccer, and they get the question right, they get a chance to shoot a goal. The same thing for maths as well. I remember there is Pac-Man game in which students calculate fractions and they have to eat the ghost with the correct answer. Okay. And the thing is that those things kind of grab students because males are more visual. They like more visual. They can't really take the chalk and talk. Where teachers on the board writing, they like to see what is going on. And I said, males are more logical, so they like to see it working and see how it applies. Also, as well, using the videos, we can use the videos also to connect to real life situation. And as I said before, males being logical, seeing how that is connected to something out there, right, they will be more likely to grasp their attention. Okay. And also, as was shown earlier about multiple intelligence, even taking them outside, showing them there's a mathematical problem in nature or whatever be the case, will actually grasp their attention and they can observe and learn and then apply.
Another thing that I read recently, were saying that we have to be careful because when you're doing your instruction or your lesson, you're supposed to create a lesson first and then incorporate technology inside there. What some people do is use technology to drive it. Okay. So there's a difference. So you don't want technology to drive the lesson. The lesson drives technology. You understand? And